This is the book of Isaiah, chapter 30, verse 1, and it reads, Woe to the rebellious children, saith the Lord, all caps Yahawah, that take counsel, but not of me, and that cover with a covering, but not of my spirit, that they may add sin to sin. Kalalayim, Allahayanawa, Yahawah, Bahasham, Yahawashi, Bahasham, Rawchaa, Qadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who teach well and rule well. Peace and salutation to the Akim, the fellow laborers, the hopeful elect, pushing this truth at risk of their own lives throughout the four corners of the earth. To the Ak with listening and learning, Shalom. It's your brother Shimon from the Pillars of Benjamin camp, here with another lesson. We'll get right into it. This article came out on RT News, May 25th, 2022. The year of Yahawah by Yahawashi turning up. The title of the article, news article, France starts handing out food stamps. Right? The subsidies are meant to help poor households amid rising prices. Several French cities have begun handing out food vouchers to the population to compensate for increasing prices, the TV channel France 2 reported on Monday. According to the report, citizens are being given coupons for €5, €20, and €30. To date, city administrations have reportedly spent about 37 million euros, which is the equivalent of around $40 million US, on the issuance of coupons and certificates, as well as other measures to support the population. A document outlining the subsidies has not yet been adopted. However, the mayor offices of some French cities have decided to introduce food coupons on their own without waiting for an official government decision. The idea of giving out food vouchers to middle and low income households. You see that? Middle and low income households. Right. These ruling class elites, what's that WEF mantra? You'll own nothing and be happy. These middle class want to take out the middle. They want a society of haves and have-nots. They want perpetual slaves. Right? Right? They want a grain of rice. They're slaves. The idea of giving out food vouchers to middle and low income households had been proposed by French President Emmanuel Macron, and was discussed long before the presidential election. Approximately 8 million citizens will benefit from the initiative. Inflation has been on the rise in France, driven by rising costs of food and energy. Experts have warned that surging prices and weak economic growth could lead to stagflation in the country, right? And right, the Most High Yahawashi is moving. He's put the spirit on these elites to move. But I was reading the comments, and this one stood out right here. If you are over 20 years old and have never read the protocols of the learned of Zion, you should check your life priorities. It's a step-by-step roadmap for the destruction of our way of life, right? And that book, I believe it's called The Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion, if I'm not mistaken. But that book's real, man. The content in there, right? It runs parallel to what we see taking place, right? Right, but our truth is these scriptures, right? These scriptures show us, these scriptures give us warning as to what's coming, right? We know what times we're in. The hopeful elect, Lord willing, we have that number. We know what time we're in, right? And ultimately, these elites want to bring in their Revelation 13 verse 16 on down, and this is part of the process. Isaiah 30 verse 1, and it reads, Woe to the rebellious children, saith Yahawah, that take counsel, right? And who are the rebellious children? You 2/3. Right? You Israelites. Israel being a people before a place. Israel, you so-called indigenous, you so-called Latino, you so-called Negro. Rebellious children that take counsel but not of me. And that take counsel but not of me, and that cover with the covering, right? And what's the covering that 2/3 of people cover with out here? You know, I'm American, I'm European, I'm African, I'm Spanish, I'm Protestant, I'm Islamist, right? The cover with a covering, but not of my spirit, that they may add sin to sin, right? Everything contrary to Yahawashi. That's 2/3 of people out here, man. Right? That YOLO, they're in that Jake's in that YOLO spirit, that do as thou wilt spirit. That's commonplace amongst Jake, man. You 2/3. That they may add sin to sin, right? Sin upon sin is iniquity. What's sin? Transgression of the law. The ways of Esau Edom is contrary to Yahawah Bashim Yahawashi. That walk to go down into Egypt, spiritual Sodom, right? America the Great, and have not asked at my mouth. They seek no counsel in the Most High Yahweh Bashim Yahawashi. They don't place their trust in Yahweh Bashim Yahawashi. They trust in idols, right? Ancient Egypt was based on idols to strengthen themselves in the strength of Pharaoh, right? Pharaoh in the ancient Egyptian world was the ruler, the king, right? Today, America the Great, Babylon the Great, the rulers, the kings, the ruling class elites, these banking families, their politicians who are the puppets, right? Strengthen themselves in the strength of Pharaoh, right? Whatever the government stimulus packages, help us, government, help us. And to trust in the shadow of Egypt, right? The shadow of Egypt. Ancient Egypt was all about idols. America the Great, all about idols. This grain of rice is an idol. Fiat currency, idol. Verse 3, therefore shall the strength of Pharaoh be your shame, the strength of the ruling class, elites, these governments, these politicians. It will be your shame. Trusting in that will be your shame. You need to trust in Yahawah Bashim Yahawashi. And the trust in the shadow of Egypt, your confusion, the trusting of what? The shadow of Egypt, the idols, the do as thou wilt, the fiat currency, the grain of rice, Caesar Borgia, right? Your confusion, right? Ultimately, all that bow to the image of Baal, the image of the beast, will perish in the lake of fire. And that's where this is going. These elites are rolling. They want to bring in their Revelation 13, verse 16 on up. Ultimately, it's the Lord's movie. And it's the Lord's will. But the Lord Yahweh Bashim Yahawashi is putting the spirit on these Edomites to roll. Right? And yeah, it's happening in France. This is coming on the whole world, man. Revelation 3, verse 10. Red letter. Because thou hast kept the word of my patience. Right? Patient means to suffer. Suffer in this truth. Who's keeping the word of Yahweh Bashim Yahawashi? Who's suffering in this truth? The elect, the house of David. Lord willing, we have that number, the hopeful elect. I will also keep thee from the hour of temptation. Right? The Most High Yahweh Bashim Yahawashi is going to protect his elect from when all hell starts to break loose, from when the bug out meter hits an all-time high, which shall come upon all the world. The whole world gonna go through this, man. Jake gonna be out here saying, I need to eat, I need to keep my job, I need to keep the roof over my head. So what are they going to do? They're going to trust in the shadow of Egypt, they're going to line up and take the grain of rice. To try them that dwell upon the earth, the whole world going to go through it. And it's only the elect with the eyes to see are not going to bow to the image of Baal. Shalom.